Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. So today we are continuing on with the My Favorite LJN tournament. We are currently on round one, part 5. So first four, that's 16 matches, or 16 matches down, and there's already been probably 2 or 3 really tough decisions, really hard eliminations, figures that I felt like should have gone 3, 4 rounds easy. And that's the difficult part about doing blind drawings, is that and I've said before, you can't plan ahead. When you see the figures sitting on the shelves and you like, okay, hey, this is the matchup. This guy's gonna square off this against this guy in the next matchup. You can kind of at least think in your head and kind of think about what you want to say or how you're gonna plan on presenting the matchup and whatnot. But there's no scheming or whatnot, so to speak, when you're doing a blind drawing. And there's really no scheming, not really, when you're doing side by side either. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what tournament I've done, I've always said I never know who I'm going to choose until the moment that I actually sit down and make the decision. Now, it's like if I'm choosing Jimmy Snuka versus Andre the Giant, you already know there's not even a choice. There's not even a split hair of a possibility where Jimmy Snuka could win that match. So you guys kind of know where I'm leaning with for certain matches like that. But a good chunk of these matches, I feel like everyone has a legitimate chance up until that point that I say so and so wins the match. So, but here in part 5, we're gonna go matches 17 through 20, and I am going to rearrange this bowl, try and make things a little bit, stuff will stop spilling out. Well, 2 names jumped out at me, so I'm going to see what 2 names jumped out. First match is going to feature Yellow and Red Hogan from Series 5 versus Brutus Beefcake. Alright, so Custom versus Brutus Series 2. Next matchup is going to feature White Slick as he does battle against Scott Steiner, which comes from John Ruggiero. Next matchup, King Kong Bundy squares off against Stunning Steve Austin. And finally, Bam Bam Bigelow, and that's the Kenny Lester Custom, will square off against King of Hearts, Owen Hart. That should be a good match. I like that one. Alright, so let me go ahead and pull those figures, and we will begin shortly. Alright, everybody. So, the 8 figures have been pulled, and let's dive in, shall we? So, the first one we were looking at was Yellow and Red Series 5 Hogan, and this is a custom figure, as he will square off against the Series 2 original of Brutus Beefcake. So, we'll start off with Hulk Hogan. I swear to God, I feel like everybody and their mom customizes a Series 5 Hogan. And like when you go on like Round Treasures as an example, I really wish they would customize like a Series 1 Hogan. Yeah, I get it. Series 1 in comparison is like a $10 figure compared to, you think about the red shirt or white shirt Hogan, which is basically $60 to $120 figures depending on condition and whatnot, right? So I understand the value as a commemorative piece. As a commemorative piece, yeah, it kind of looks more prestigious displayed on the shelf. But the Series 1 Hulk Hogan is arguably the greatest playable action figure ever, and that's what we all look for. I think most of us look forward to that type of design, right? And when you look at like a Series 5 Hulk Hogan, it's just not a very good playable figure. Now, I do have the Series 5 Hogan listed as like my top 20, but I think that's more about more about the design or color scheme of the figure more than playability. I mean, it is still a very serviceable figure, so it's not like you can't do anything with it, whatnot. But when you get like Rip Thomas from No Holds Barred, and you get like your NWO Hogans, and you get like the No Shirt Hogan, and you get like the New Japan Pro Wrestling Hogan, you get all these different variants, right? And they're all using the Series 5 figure. I don't like that. Like, kind of if you're going to create Hogan, I want to see something different. I don't want to see a Series 1 Hogan from LJN. I definitely don't want to see a Series 5. I want to see a brand new mold of the figure, a completely different body type. But I do own a dozen or so of these freaking Hogan figures with this particular body type. So when I did this, you could tell right off the bat it is a custom, extra shiny, so very beautifully detailed. Really pops with color scheme. So this is an opposite color scheme when you look at the original LJN release, which had a red shirt but yellow trunks. So, but other than that, it's pretty much detailed exactly the same way. Again, just flip-flop color right here. Looks spectacular, and he squares off against Brutus Beefcake. If it's simply a Hogan versus Beefcake match, it's like, okay, Hogan all day long, right? Now, Brutus Beefcake, when I first started collecting LGNs, he was kind of like right on the same boat as Greg Valentine. When I looked at Greg Valentine, I didn't think much of him. I watched Greg Valentine growing up, and he wasn't like any mega superstar in my eyes. He was just kind of like, he was like a supporting cast member type of deal. Someone that would come into like a Royal Rumble, be part of it for 15-20 minutes, but wouldn't do a lot of damage. Someone you would never think of being a legitimate competition. I never thought of Greg Valentine as like a champion, but shoot, man, 80s. Vintage 80s Greg Valentine. Intercontinental champion, tag team champion, wow, amazing. I kind of feel the same way with Brutus Beefcake. I never think of Brutus Beefcake as like a mega superstar, but there he was, Dream Team, Greg Valentine, tag team champion. And the figure, when I got the Greg Valentine figure and started using it, heck yeah, probably the most enjoyable figure for me. Most commonly used. Him and Bundy. Brutus Beefcake, not quite the same. Fighting pose is decent. It's not the most enjoyable ever, but it's definitely serviceable. So from a playable standpoint, yeah, I kind of feel like Brutus Beefcake is most definitely a superior figure in that regard. I kind of run into the same issue that I ran into in the last video. I talked about the Series 2 custom of Andre the Giant, where if that Series 2 custom, where they painted him to look like a blackstrap Andre, if he went up against any of the other Andre the Giants, he would lose. So do I push him forward knowing that he would lose against one of his fellow counterparts? Or do I give an opportunity to, like the Ricky Steamboat, to push forward knowing that he may not go very far in the tournament anyways? There are several Brutus Beefcake figures in this tournament, but there are also several more Hulk Hogan figures. And we're not even talking about the Ram Treasures figure of Brutus Beefcake, which I think is even superior to this one. So I think they're about even. I think the commemorative piece I really enjoy more. So when I kind of think about the different customizations, I don't mind this color. I like this a lot, actually. But I do feel like any of the customs would probably defeat the original figure if they had a one-on-one battle. So with that being said, I feel like my decision is relatively easy, and I would probably go with the Hulk Hogan custom to defeat original Brutus Beefcake. And it's nice to see Mega Maniacs squaring off against each other. That's a nice little touch for a first matchup here in this video. Next battle is going to feature White Slick as he does battle against Scott Steiner. So, I have a couple different customs from Slick, and what I really like about this figure don't get me wrong, I love the gray suited Slick. And as far as color scheme, yes, gray suit Slick, superior figure, no doubt. But I like this hat. It kind of gives you like that 1920s newsroom hat. And when you kind of look at it like Babe Ruth back in the day, and I call it like a newspaper, or newsboy, newspaper. Yeah, newsroom. I mean, I don't know how you would describe it. I don't know what the exact name for that particular type of hat is. So, paperboy hat, newsroom hat, I don't know. But I like that design. I think that's really nice. And it's molded to the head pretty well. I mean, obviously, it doesn't like stick really well. You can't move it around. It does fall off. But the same thing can be said about the original figure and accessory. So, it's not exactly the tightest. And it's a brand new take, a different look. So, I think that is spectacular. One downside, it would have been nice if they actually kind of filled this in, kind of gave you some different colors right here, but it's still a decent piece. Slick and Elizabeth. I don't like how tiny the figures are. Super small, super thin. They just don't mesh well with the rest of the figures. Not the wrestlers, not even the managers. So, even Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart's a small figure, but I feel like that Jimmy Hart figure still kind of outshines the Slick figure. Now, I don't know how big Slick was in real life, so I don't know how much I could compare the two, but I mean, Jimmy Hart was not a very tall man. So, Scott Steiner from the 1J Rugs. I have not purchased anything from John Ruggiero in a long time, but man, I probably got a good half a dozen or more figures from him, probably closer to 10 figures from him. And he's probably one of those customizers that I have. He's probably one of my top 5 customizers that I've bought from. As far as quantity, he did an amazing job with this figure. I'm not the biggest Ted Arcidi pose fan, as you guys know in the last video. A couple of things I like about the figure. I like whenever you look at John's figures, like Kane as an example, and Brutus Beefcake definitely. To an extent, even the Scott Steiner figure. Now, he does kind of have like lines through the hair where it's kind of like a little bit of wavy and whatnot, but the hair is usually like very flat and very smooth. So I really like that aspect. Because Scott Steiner later on, big Papa Pump, really turned into this big muscle head. So utilizing a Ted Arcidi makes a lot of sense for this particular character. And because the Steiner brothers were always in singlets, Ted Arcidi, obviously singlet, makes a lot of sense. I would have loved to have seen them turn this into something different, kind of move the arms around or something. Now, not every customizer is going to sit there and manipulate the body parts to create or design their own character. Most customizers are just repainting stuff. But new head modes, obviously you could tell that's not, they didn't just take a Ted Arcidi and just like paint over the face or something. They did some kind of sculpting and whatnot around the body. So, I mean, it's a rubber figure. It's not resin. So you can see the difference between this and an original figure. Right? So, a little bit more cartoony. Is it professionally done, like from an actual large-scale toy store or toy company like a Toy Biz or Hasbro or something like that? No. Still, for a man working out of his home, I think it's very well done. And Scott Steiner, one of my beloved characters. I love the early going of Scott Steiner. Not so much the guy in the later 90s and whatnot, but this version, yeah. This Scott Steiner I really like. And to me, again, another very easy choice. Scott Steiner, easily far superior than Slick in this particular selection. Now, this is a tough one. This one's going to feature original King Kong Bundy as he does battle against stunning Steve Austin. So we will start off with King Kong Bundy. I kind of felt like King Kong Bundy is one of those figures that should be in my top 10 all-time favorite LJN original figures. Outside of Greg Valentine, when I was actually doing my rumbles and I was kind of getting a feel for the figures, Greg Valentine and King Kong Bundy, they were my two most commonly used figures. I didn't want to eliminate them. I wanted to keep using them because they were just so much fun. Greg Valentine had this really fun pose to use, and King Kong Bundy, because of the girth, him and Big John Studd, they just exact so much damage against the competition that it was just killer to have those guys in there. You know, Hogan against Studd, Hogan against Bundy. It was a lot of enjoyment to make those matches. I mean, I'm already familiar with this because of Lex Luger and the Galoob fighting pose, right? So it's not like it was unique. And, you know, he's got that whole same double DDT fighting pose. You always got to sit there and kind of pretend to do a body slam, which I hate. I don't like that. You always got to kind of pretend to throw a punch. So you're doing a lot of headbutting and kicks and whatnot. Pretend to be body slams, pretend punches and whatnot, but the girth of the figure is what does it for me. It's why it's one of the most enjoyable action figures, not only from LJN, but of any line out there. Ever since I got into toy collecting, yeah, it's figures like this that I gravitate towards. Now, recently I did get a new King Kong Bundy custom, and it was a hell of an upgrade. Do I eliminate this one because I got a superior figure? Or do I allow this one to move forward? Here's a tough choice. This stunning Steve Austin, Greg Valentine fighting pose, one of the best fighting poses of the entire LJN. The look is adequate. This is another one of those Wrestling Bar figures that he sent me that were not finished. I talked about him sending me a box of figures that I've been waiting on for a year and a half, others 2 years. He sent me a box of figures and they were all unfinished. And I feel like this is unfinished as well. And it's a resin figure, so from what I'm told by other customizers, resin figures are a lot easier to paint. Paint doesn't come off as easy as it does on rubber, so I don't know what all the deficiencies are. I mean, the colors are what they are. Great fighting pose, decent look, head sculpt and everything to the figure. All in all, I mean, yes, it's resin and that does detract some of the value. But this could potentially be a finalist. That's how good the figure overall looks. I don't know, man. I really enjoy this, but the problem is I couldn't sit there and actually use this as a playable wrestling action figure. But I'd really want to because it's just so much fun. Killer. I am more of a King Kong Bundy fan than I am a Steve Austin fan, and I am going to push King Kong Bundy forward. In past tournaments, I think King Kong Bundy, and I'm just speculating, I don't really remember, to be honest. I think King Kong Bundy never made it past the second round. And not because it was a bad figure. Right now, I think King Kong Bundy I have listed as like my number 13 or something, all-time favorite LJN. I think because in previous LJN tournaments, I think he usually goes up against like Big John Studd in like the second round, and he's eliminated then, or he goes up against Andre the Giant or something like that. So, you know, that's the hand he's dealt. He goes up against these giants. Not just talking about height. I'm talking about giants in the LJN line as far as incredible figures. But yeah, I'm really hoping to see this figure go far because I think he finally deserves to get a real push. As an action figure tournament, I know I could get probably more enjoyment from the Steve Austin figure because of pose. but it's a resin figure, right? If I decide I want to use it, I have to sit there and I got to be gentle with it. I can't sit there and basically throw them down essentially like you would a rubber figure. So it wouldn't be as enjoyable. And as an action figure tournament, I have to choose the right action figure itself. So there are certain things that are going to pop out for particular reasons. So the last matchup is going to feature King of Hearts, Owen Hart, as he does battle against Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, Bam Bam Bigelow, when I first bought this one came from the Raider Nation. And the Raider Nation, again, is one of those shops on eBay that I bought some of my most custom LJN figures from. And Justin, he's one of those guys, awesome dudes to do business with. And Kenny Lester, he's the artist that paints all these figures. Does amazing work. I don't know what it is, but when I first saw this figure, I thought it was an actual Bam Bam Bigelow figure. I guess I didn't really pay close attention to the hands. So I thought it was an actual Bam Bam Bigelow figure, and I just thought they just repainted him. I'm like, okay, cool. Bam Bam, and I got a new paint job. Awesome. Something different. And then I got the figure in, I held it in my hand, I'm like, that's a King Kong Bundy. And, yeah, sure enough, I mean, no, they didn't like change out the head, new head mold or anything. It's literally just a King Kong Bundy head, repainted and whatnot. But Kenny did such a great job that it actually looks like Bam Bam, and with the fire on the head and everything. So, is it the most pristine custom I own? Is it the best? There are a lot of early figures that I got from the Raider Nation that I actually coveted that were absolutely, far superior. Like my Honky Tonk Man was superior, and Coco Beware was great, right? So there's a lot of these really early figures I really loved, and so I kept buying them because I always wanted the Raider Nation figures. And I kind of feel like a lot of the figures, I don't want to say it went downhill, but the quality to me just wasn't as good as those first set of figures I bought. And after a while, I just kind of had to stop buying them because they were just, for the price that was being asked for them, I just wasn't willing to pay for them. So like if this was asked, if you were asking $130 on this figure, like I wouldn't go back and buy this. I don't know what I paid on it, but I'm assuming like $79 or something, $80. If I went back now, knowing that this was a King Kong Bundy, I wouldn't have bought that. It was my fault. I didn't look at the picture well enough. I thought it was an actual Bam Bam figure, and Bam Bam Bigelow LJN original is a pretty valuable figure. So, but it's still a nice figure. It's awesome to have a new addition to the collection. I mean, I've had this one for a long time, so it's not new to me, but. And one of my greatest memories is freaking Major Payne. Watching this man get drop kicked by freaking Damon Wayans is like one of the greatest things ever. He squares off against Owen Hart. So I do have two Owen Harts customs, and you guys know my other Owen Hart, which I think is one of the worst customs ever made. Well, from the waist down, it's an awesome figure. From the head mold is horrible, which makes it one of the worst customs ever. All they did was take a Bret Hart figure and repaint him, make him blonde. It's still a Bret Hart, but still light years better. And I actually really love this figure. The overall design throughout is spectacular. I mean, they're brothers, so it's fine to use a Bret Hart figure to make an Owen Hart. And like I said, overall design looks spectacular. It looks natural. I mean, I don't see any deficiencies. I mean, it would be nice if like the wristbands were kind of filled in and they weren't just paint flesh tone, but other than that, spectacular. Bret Hart. The Bret Hart figure Maybe one of the most coveted and beloved action figures of the LJN line, because Bret Hart is such a beloved character in general. But you look at the figure, and I used to love the figure, but you actually look at it, he really is just a punch only figure, and he's like a right punch only. You literally cannot do anything else with Bret Hart. You look at the original Bret Hart, and I'm going to talk about it when we get to that Bret Hart figure, or any of his customs. I have him, I think, like, I don't know, if I have Bundy at 13, I probably have Bret Hart like 14. My 14th favorite LJN figure, but because of the character, look-wise, I think I put him that high, but as far as enjoyable, playable figures, no, I don't think he really deserves to be that high. I don't think Bret Hart really deserves to be on the top 20, maybe not even a top 30 of LJNs. Like I said, he's just strictly a punch-only figure, so it's kind of boring. In this regard, no. To me, Owen Hart, far superior figure overall. Play-wise, design-wise, not as sticky. Owen Hart, to me, deserves to move on to round 2. And he will surpass Bam Bam Bigelow in round 1. Alright, so that knocks out round 1, part 5. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.